Okay, folks, welcome to this week's Fife Property Show. We're going to be talking today about show your home's heart. Appropriately enough, Valentine's Day coming up. Instantly unlock the hidden extra value by shining a light on all the existing features of your property. Now, not every home sells for its full potential value, but it's often because the finest features are either hidden or underpresented. But you can add many thousands to your sale price simply by showing off what's already there. I mean, never a truer word has been said, Susan, is it?
Exactly. I could tell you that from experience. I've recently moved to an older house. I've always had modern houses. I'm in an older house, and I'll tell you, see the features that I'm finding. We've got fireplaces that are blocked up that we're going to bring back. Tiles at the front door that are slightly cracked, but they're older tiles. I'm going to keep them, see if I could restore them. So you're absolutely right.
Do you find that as well, Karen?
Okay, so
when you go around some of the properties? So when you go around some of the properties, Erin, do you find that as well, where you actually see some of the features and you actually see them hidden?
Of course, yeah. Even though furniture and styling plays their part, buyers are ultimately paying for the fabric of your home, and that's how estate agent, mortgage lenders, and surveyors will appraise the value of the property. So it does kind of make a financial sense in that sense. Sorry.
Okay, so when you go around the properties, then do you actually see quite a lot of this stuff actually, and you think to yourself that shouldn't really be hidden, or is it the case that you see most sellers out there actually taking advantage of the features that we see right now? Do you actually see that yourself, Ellen?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, it's a matter of opinion, but the more features, the better. In a sense, it does.
Yeah.
It's the property. It comes with the kind of theme that's going on. Obviously, if you've got a new build property, there's less features. You mean you've got maybe the coven in the living room, but when you're back to Victorian style properties, that's when you've got the nice cornicing and ceiling rows. So they all play a very important part, and I think it's important to keep an eye out for them and try to emphasise them.
What do you think? What do you think is the one main feature that is completely undervalued in a property? Have you got an opinion on that?
One main feature. To be honest, for me, it's always a ceiling rose when it's a proper Victorian style property. That's what I would say it is. When you go in, there was properties we had, I think, down on Links Road and Leaving, and obviously all the architecture. It's very how it was back in the day, if you like, and the way they emphasised the ceiling rose with the paint and really making it stand out. That's kind of what thought for me. What about yourself, Jim?
Well, actually, now that you mention that, you get some of the old sea captains' houses. And they were all done like that. You walk into some of these properties when you talk about the cornicing, and it's like a work of art. It's like it's almost, I wouldn't say it's as far as the Sistine Chapel, but it's almost like something like that in terms of the cornice and the way it's all designed. I've seen that quite a bit. I've seen it in the East Neuk area. I've also seen it in the Leadenmouth area, and now and again, once in a blue moon, you'll see it in St Andrews as well. Susan, what do you think as well? For you, what do you think is the most undervalued feature that people should actually, take when they come to market, actually take advantage of or expose for people to see?
It's as simple as keeping the place light and airy. Just let's get the curtains back. Let's have a good look at everything. I love nothing more than opening the front door. You walk in, you see light. The room doors are open. You see the staircase. You see nice paint, and it's all nice and clean. It's as good as it's the light. I just like it to be all open, big space. It shows the size of the rooms and so on. So for me, walking in, I think.
That's actually a very good point when you say that. It's actually the staircases are actually a classic example. Sometimes you get these really feature staircases, with a timber balustrade or even the wrought iron balustrade, and it just sweeps right up the stairs, maybe to a split landing and then splits off as well. And then also when you just touched on it in the beginning, the tiled front door, the early 1900 properties or late 1800 properties usually have the Victorian tiles. Some of them are actually still intact. And it is a wonderful feature, and it tells you a lot about the property as soon as you walk in the front door.
Yeah, it adds character, doesn't it? It's really nice. I really like that.
Absolutely. So it does make sound financial sense to make most of what you've got highlighted and all the existing character and space. So when you've got it right, it's a surefire way to wow your buyers. From the stunning photography online, to the fantastic viewing experience, to the video walkthroughs that we do when we walk through. So this week's show is all about this. The first one we want to talk about is, believe in the love at first sight. It does seriously matter. So what do I talk about when I'm saying that? Well, when buyers arrive outside your home, those first few moments, and you know yourself, can truly make or break a sale. I've had it where somebody's actually walked up and said, it's no for me. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're not even inside. It's like, how do you know that? And why did you not just do a drive-by then decide that anyway? Anyway, so that's the sort of thing. So focus on highlighting the natural external character to start the viewings off on a right foot. First impressions is really got to be the be-all and end-all. But did you know that you can get a second chance to make a good first impression? So what sort of things should we be looking out for, Susan, when we're looking through this, the first impressions?
Well, a lot of it is making sure that you've got everything neat and tidy for your garden space, your gate. So from your gate walking in. So a lot of people like to have nice plants at either side of the door. Maybe like a nice wreath on their door. That looks quite nice. They don't have to be expensive. You could make your own. Don't know if you watch the girl Solomon on YouTube. She does all her own handmade. Stacey Solomon from Loose Women. Do you watch her? She makes all her own handmade wreaths and so on. It looks wonderful. They're cheap. So basically having your door looking really nice. So trying the Victorian art of creating a more expensive look. So by painting your external woodwork, probably in a rich deep tone, it's a trick that works on any home, whether it's old or if it's new. Make sure your brickwork's clean and restore any stonework or paint just in a realistic stone-like colour. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money either. Basically having it match different paints, so something that's matching. Also, your pathway, make sure you wash it, make sure it's nice and clean and tidy. Any litter in the garden that somebody's probably dropped going by, make sure you pick that up. Your planters as well, if you've got any plant pots outside, let's freshen them up, give them a wee station, make sure you've got them nice looking. And also just making sure your front door's clean. So like dust free, you know how the weather is at the moment. So your panels, your letterbox, let's make sure that that's all nice and washed down and make it clean so that when you're opening that door, they're coming to the door and they're thinking this house is looked after. Because that's what they're here to see. They're here to see that it's a house that they're going to buy and they want to make sure that it's looked after.
So
what do you think? Is that something that you would look for, Jim, when you turn up the house?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at the colours. When you're looking at masonry paint, you're looking at London stone or maybe stony ground from Farrow and Ball. Now, we've got a couple of links in this post as well to these colours, so you understand what we're talking about. Oxford blue on a front door still really wows the property itself. Sometimes even that canary yellow on some doors will make a huge difference. You know, in the old Victorian solid wood doors with the proper panelling on it. They actually accentuate the front of the property as well and just give that something. I don't know what it is, just to give that curb appeal. But you're absolutely right. You know, the front door and cleaning up. You know, Erin, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, 100%. I think a front door does really, kind of, depending on what kind of property you're going into. I remember we had a couple on at Toll Road and one of them had a yellow front door and it just stood out from the rest of the street. And when you're driving past, of course, you see the for sale board outside the property, but first thing you look at is the front door and you go, yeah. It gives you a real feel of what kind of property you're going into, that's bright, that's bold, it's all those things.
Stonework's quite an important thing as well, because obviously sometimes, well, especially in East Neuk, because you've got all the elements you're exposed to, you've got the sandstone at the front. So you always have to make sure that the sandstone's actually protected. And you do get companies that will do that for you. Because the erosion is quite prevalent in some of the properties over a period of time. Although it will take years and years and years to happen. But sometimes as well, what you have to watch out for is it becomes porous. And then obviously it soaks into the water and then it causes issues with having to strap in board and line and in terms of the internals of the walls in order to compensate for that. So, you know, just watch out that and be aware of that. But first impressions really do count. So don't miss the chance to get your buyers excited about what is actually waiting inside. Is that, you know, do we sweep buyers off their feet?
See, before we move on to what's waiting inside. See, before we move on to waiting to see what's inside, Jim, are you the typical man that would look at the house as well from the outside to have a look at the gutterings, the ruins and things like that? Or is Is that just that men do that because a woman doesn't?
Possibly. I mean, we've got to the stage where a house is a bed, basically, for me. And it doesn't matter where I live as long as it's reasonable inside. It doesn't matter anymore, really. But you're absolutely right. You know, sometimes it becomes more logical about, you know, the condition of the property and what needs to be done to it. And, you know, the features inside really don't do anything for me, but it will do for someone else. It just depends. You know, we've all got different senses: the sight, smell, sound, touch. And if you can hit all these different senses at the same time, that's when you can have the wow factor in terms of delivering the right marketing strategy for a property. You know, let's talk about the buyers. I mean, buyers automatically look down when they step into a home. It's the first thing they do, actually, which means your floors get a lot of attention. Now, this is essential. I've walked into some houses, and I'll tell you, it's like you can have squidgy carpets sometimes, but they're few and far between, and it does happen. So if you do have that, if you're in that position, then maybe a quick clean by a local company or a local contractor to just give the carpets a pick once over would make a fundamental difference, because buyers do that. And how they look and feel underfoot makes a big difference to the viewing experience overall. So give viewers plenty of attention to put the spring in their steps. What's the sort of things we can do here, Erin?
I mean, it's hard to go wrong with wooden floors, particularly original floorboards that look fabulous when they're stripped and oiled. So that's always alone a win-win. You could have some original tiles that you want to be rediscovered beneath the flooring into maybe your entrance or in your hall if it's kind of an old style Victorian property, and reeling and kind of renovating them, just touching them up a bit. That'll definitely win over the fans.
Yeah, it definitely happens. I mean, it's just like what Susan says about now and again, you take the boarding off the walls and you actually find this wow fireplace that's been there for years, and you kind of think, wow, I could easily put a log burner in there, or I could maybe resurrect a fire and actually get it back to what it was. I know it's not climate PC, however, you know, you can't say that you wouldn't like a real fire or a log burner. You know, it's just one of these things that make you, especially when it comes into the winter months, it makes you feel a lot more cozier.
100%, especially with kind of the bills and that. Putting on the log burner heats up the whole house, doesn't it?
Yeah. Aye. What else can we look at then,
Certainly does.
You could sort of give your carpets a deep clean just to kind of restore the colour and remove maybe the dark dust lines around the edges. It's always good to do things like that just to emphasise the colour again. And like I said, maybe make the place a lot brighter, Susan, if you're getting it clean, getting it tidy, making it a lot more fresher.
Yeah, and finally, I wouldn't forget about the visible floor space. There's the more there is, really, the better your home will feel. So it's clear that sight lines to windows, for example, and get clutters off the floors, lift plant pots onto stands, and play with moving or removing furniture. Now, remember, this is only a temporary thing you need to do. You know, you're going to be selling your house. You're going to be moving out. If you're actually thinking about getting new furniture for your next house, then maybe consider actually getting rid of the existing furniture right now and actually getting the new furniture now, because it makes a fundamental difference to the viewing experience. If you're getting rid of your furniture, nobody wants to see your tatty furniture in your house. So if you're getting new furniture straight away, then it just gives that fundamental difference and that impression in the buyer's mind, which can actually push the end price a lot higher than what it is, even though you're actually taking the furniture with you. Work that one out. But it happens, doesn't it?
It does. You see it all the time. You see it all.
So this one small change can make a fundamental, massive difference. What's the next thing we need to think about, Susan?
So lightening up your rooms, this is a part that I find quite good. So something that we do notice on viewings is how people, they all gravitate to the window, don't they? They walk in, they go to the window. That's where they like, I suppose. It's a buyer's factor, isn't it? So the way you dress and present your windows is a huge impact on someone's experience in your home. So, for example, I like the wood plated blinds that you get at the moment. They're absolutely lovely when they come down. But then when you've got someone in, you want to have them open. You want them to see the size of the room. You want them to see the light that comes into the room. You don't want them shut because then they can't see what there is in the room. Anything that's croaking panes, you didn't want want to have them on show. So if it means to get them repaired or clean them, that's what you should be doing. It's incredible how much brighter everything will feel with the daylight streaming in, although we do know that you might have some evening viewings. But for during the day, if you've got some nice, bright, clean mirrors, no point in putting a mirror up if it's going to be all dusty and fingerprints on it, but have a nice clean mirror, and then it emphasises the size of the room as well, doesn't it? It amplifies the well natural light. It makes it so much bigger. Like I said, there are of course viewings that happen in the dark. So if you've got these cold white light bulbs in, you're probably better changing them over in your lamps to a nice soft tone LED light, just to make it more inviting, and your buyers will feel a wee bit more warmer and cosy, won't they, when they come into the house? And you do want to put all your lamps on. You want it to be nice and bright if it's dark, because people do want to get a good look around the house. So if you've got extra lamps, I would put them out, wouldn't you think so? Guys, would you do the same?
Yeah, 100%. I also think quite a good one is, I know they don't get off much light, but it's always nice to light a few candles some places as well. Just that there's maybe a dark corner somewhere where you've got a little table. Instead of trying to clutter and go, oh, I need to go to Sainsbury's right now and buy a lamp to make that look nice. Candle, get that lit. It gives a nice cozy impression, especially when you're staying in the winter months. It's definitely a good one. Underrated, but putting a candle, I think that makes quite a nice feel to the property as well.
Also doubles up as an air freshener, doesn't it? Really?
Of course.
Because you get lavender. Well, the classic examples are, what is the best smells you have? Lavender, vanilla, oxygen, all these different things. It's the things I think that really fall the line of the adverts on the television. So whatever the adverts on the television are leading with is the go-to smell, like the Febreze smell and stuff like that, then that's the smell you should actually adopt for your house. Because the classic example is they've done all the marketing for you in the beginning. They've actually convinced people that lavender is the freshest smell going. I mean, if that, and you can see where that is most prevalent is in toothpaste. Everybody believes that mint is the best toothpaste, but why could it not be chocolate? Think about that.
Actually, yeah.
It's the same product. It's the same product. Why would it not be a chocolate taste toothpaste? Because it doesn't affect anything. It doesn't rot your teeth or anything like that. It's the same product, but it just tastes like chocolate. And yet we all convince ourselves as mint is the freshest taste. Shows you. So look around you, think about what the sights and sounds are and all the smells as well, and what is the things that people respond to better than other smells, and that is the ones you use. Now, often I say, if you're struggling to get the right things or you want to be cost effective in what you're doing, just go down to Home Bargains or something like that, and you get a box of 5, maybe 3 or 5 gel fresheners. You peel the front off, you stick it behind the back of the door. Now you get them for about £1.50. You stick them behind the back of the door in each room, or the side of the radiator, or the back of the curtain, so nobody sees them when they walk in, mind you, because remember, you're doing a wee trick here. And then they immediately walk in. That's what they smell when they walk in the front door. That's what excites them. It's the smell. It's the sound. And especially as well, if you've got any windows, close the windows if you're noisy outside, if you've got a road next to you. That is key here. Open the windows beforehand, maybe just to air the house, but then close the windows and make it a bit cozier. Also make it so there's not enough noise outside. Now, if somebody goes to open the window to open it, and then, and just to test that, here's another one. If somebody goes to open the window to open it and they do hear the noise from the road, then it's easy enough for you then to just close the window. And so, see, the effective double glazing is really good.
Yeah, that's
easy to make a plus out of that. So it's easy to make a plus out of that. What top tip, what is the best thing to clean windows and mirrors with? Anybody?
I don't do
water and vinegar in a newspaper.
Yeah. Have you tried it though? Have you actually tried it?
Water and vinegar. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I wash my windows with water and vinegar in the newspaper. It's brilliant.
What about you, Erin?
What about you, Jim? Have you tried it?
I've not done cleaning. I don't think my mum has ever asked me to clean the windows when I've been doing chores around the house. So
wow, we need to get you doing it in the office then.
That's my one thing. That's where my practice will come.
light is a really important thing as well.
Yeah.
What I'd recommend most people to do is, if you've got the old, I don't know if it's the incandescent LED lights that used to light up and they take about half an hour to actually light up the room. You know, now's the time to get rid of these and actually put proper current up-to-date LED lights in. It may cost you £6 for a bulb, but I'll tell you what, it's worth it, because you'll get the right light in your room, plus the fact they're a lot more brighter than they were. A 4 kilowatt bulb from, you know, power saver bulb from, you know, many years ago is not as bright as a 4 kilowatt LED as it is today. It's far different. And plus the fact, if you're looking for the right light for a room, now, the yellow cream light, which is the usual typical light you have in a room, sometimes it can actually make the room look dingy and dark. So be careful what you're using, because often daylight, which is cool white light on an LED, is the best light for a room. If you want to show off its natural colours, and you've maybe got restrictive light coming in from some of the windows, because when you put that light on, nobody actually realises it's on in the room, because it emits the same light as it is outside, the daylight light. So nobody actually realizes that's actually on in the room. And also, if you've got restrictive lighting coming in from your window, you're prone to cloud cover as well, where sometimes the sun disappears quite quickly during the day, and therefore the room goes dark. That's the golden opportunity to put the lighting on as well. So when you do a viewing, the recommendation is put all the lights on in the house, irrespective of you think that the room doesn't need the light, because you never know when that sun will disappear around behind that cloud. And it could be the perfect time when you actually walk in the room with a buyer and it goes dark.
That's a good point. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
good point. Actually.
So as you said, curtains, make sure you repair. Another one as well, make sure you get an opportunity to repair the double glazing. It is important. It doesn't take much. There's local companies like Looker Double Glazing. There's Bob from C&G Windows as well. There's a lot of different companies locally. It can actually easily replace a defective seal on a double glazed unit. It is just a case of popping out the beading at the side. You put the unit in, you put the beading back in, job done. So it is very cost effective, and it makes a fundamental difference, especially if the window leads to the wow factor, which is a view over the countryside or over the sea to the first or fourth. That's essential that you do that, because it just gives the wrong impression. If you've got a defective seal and somebody walks up and says, wow, what else do they believe in the house might be defective as a result of just that one thing, which could cost less, probably around about £100 to fix normally.
Of course, it's all small spec, but makes a big difference.
So, search for the long lost love. Now, so what I mean by that, although the modern kitchen and bathroom are major selling points, buyers will also pay more for a home packed with features from when it was built, whether it's the 1850s or the 1950s. So leave no stone unturned in looking around and seeing what you can actually discover. Look out for interior doors that may have paneling over. Now, this is a classic. Back in the 1950s, 1960s, a lot of people took the original doors in their houses and they put hardboard over it. Now, I don't know why they did that. It's possibly they couldn't be bothered painting again. And then they put a beading around the hardboard, so it looks like the door is just one big door with this facing on it, this singular facing on it. If you actually take these doors off, often you've got Windsor-style paneling in them, which is the 6 panels. You sometimes have one with 8 panels in the smaller sizes, and sometimes even the 4 panels with beautiful beading around the inside of it. Now, often as well, you can dip and strip these doors for minimal cost and bring them back to their usual. And with the furniture on the door as well, it might actually be the perfect feature which will match your 1850s, 1950s home and just give it that extra bit of style. So look out for the interior doors that have the paneling, can reveal that, and even swap the old wooden panels for etched glass to increase the light flow in your room as well. Often, maybe as well, you have a lot of light coming into your living room, but not necessarily to your hall. So there's an opportunity to change some of the panels for actual glass to get your hall lit up a bit more. But again, LED lights in the hall would make a fundamental difference when you walk in the door, and cool white light you would never notice, and it actually makes it look really bright. Use mirrors as well to reflect light in rooms to give it that brightness. What other things do we need to be looking for, Susan?
Well, sometimes you can uncover hidden features like beams and interesting pieces of structure. It's just by, like you're saying, removing and lowering ceilings, just like what you're saying about the door. If you take things back, you might find things. So it basically brings out the details in a decorative coving and ceiling rows and layers of paint with a light wire brush. So sometimes just by doing that, you could actually unearth obviously nice decorative coving behind whatever's been put up plasterboard previously. You could also add a stylish pendant or a chandelier from retailers such as Next and John Lewis. Give you a wee find on that. I go around vintage shops and I look for things like that. You can actually bring them back and take them back and restore them. So I love looking for things like that. In fact, today there's Largo Ward, they've got their buy and sell. I'm hoping to go up there to see if I can find any nice things. But yeah, go to vintage shops. There's lots of charity shops that are doing it as well. You don't have to pay a fortune, do you, for these things? You could go out and find them. Other things too are like your skirting boards, picture rails, window frames, doors and original cupboards. Sometimes they're actually covered. So just taking the paint back or even glossing them white, or in a colour match. And I never thought of this before, by the way. You can make the room look bigger if you colour match. I've never thought of that. So what I mean by that is paint your door the same colour as your walls. Never thought about that before. Are you guys ever did that? I've never seen that actually, apart from like if you've got white in the room, the white door. But if you can imagine a deep blue and a deep blue door, or a green and a door, I'm not quite sure, but that sounds quite interesting to make the room look bigger. Has any of you guys seen it as you're going round in properties?
Usually find that trends go round and round. So colour matching is something probably from the 1970s, which is coming back right now. We've actually got some advice in there. There's a couple of links in there as well to the things that you just spoke about, Susan. Unclogging layers of paint with a light wire brush. There's a link in there that you can actually just click on and it will show you how to do that. Also, the things like you'd said there, mentioned about the retailers like Next and John Lewis, we've actually got links onto there for the stylish pendants and chandeliers that we've actually just spoken about as well. So it's an opportunity just to see what we're talking about and what would make a fundamental difference to your home. But you're absolutely right. You know, things like that will make a fundamental difference. What about yourself, Erin? What are your thoughts on this?
I think that they definitely all do make fundamental differences, but to add on your point, Susan, I don't think I've ever seen a matching door with matching walls. Might be before my time, but all the properties that I've been in recently, it is kind of I see a lot of common white doors, or if they have got dark or wooden doors, they've always got maybe the 2 mirrors at the top and bottom, or the 4 windows there, just to try and keep the natural light coming in. But a very simple measure, it doesn't require any decorating to give your woodwork a really good clean. Sometimes that's all it takes, just a good scrub with anything to transform and improve its appearance, really, isn't it?
Yeah. You see a lot of the ones when you're talking about the things, the plasterboard and the beams actually hidden. A lot of the East Neuk properties, because they were built in 1700s and 1600s, when they were used, and they're still existing today, have actually been strapped and boarded and lined inside. And I've seen it where they've actually, a lot of sellers, when they've bought their house, have actually taken it off and exposed all this beautiful stonework. And I'm talking about, slate all the way through on a featured wall, all the wee bits of slate, and the way the wall's been built itself. And often as well, what you do find is you find sometimes a wee bale of, a small bale of hay. And it's an old thing going back to the witches' days, where they used to actually put this they used to hide this behind the actual wall itself, and actually give good luck to the people in the house and good fortune. So, all these things can actually be.
Was that hay?
Yeah, all these things can be taken advantage of.
Was that hay? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a bale of straw or bale of hay. But I've seen it in St. Monans. They've actually exposed that. And then what they've done is they've actually carefully put it back in and actually hidden it again for the next person.
Right.
And taking advantage of the whole beautiful stonework all the way through. And make that a featured wall in the fireplace. Because the fireplace is often there as well and intact. And then actually normally paint the existing walls, possibly in a beige, in order, or a white in order to make the feature wall pop, basically. And then you've got the natural light coming into the fireplace as well, and the timber staircase going up to the upper landings, which was possibly the original net lofts, which have actually been converted with these beautiful views over to the Firth of Forth. I'm in the house, by the way. The one I'm talking about. That's why I'm talking all the way through. That's in West Shore. That's in West Shore and St Monans. So that I know that one very, very well. So watch out for these ones, actually, because there's talk that these actually might be coming up for sale again. We do have one in West Shore and St Monans right now. It's a fantastic property. So check that out on our website. So yeah, give it a good scrub, reveal its appearance. Golden opportunity to rejuvenate something that's existing in the house and go on from there. Unless you've got underfloor heating, this is one of the things I want to talk about. The chances are you've got radiators and perhaps even a fireplace or two in the home. But how are you making the most of how they actually look? Forget that for the traditional fireplaces, strip the paint from any marble, cast iron, timber or tiles to reveal their full glory. So there's always spattered paint somewhere on something, and you could easily strip that off. There's lots of YouTube videos to how to do this if you are unsure. I mean, olden days it was like I used to just go read to the Reader's Digest. that was my go-to Reader's Digest manual. That was before pre-internet, and that had everything you needed to do for your DIY. The DIY guide from the Reader's Digest. They also make a really good eye-catch centerpiece, and choose logs and fire tools for a working grate or style with candlesticks or art or plants or even books. If the fireplace isn't usable anymore, but it has actually a wonderful feature, you can often do that in style with all these different to make that just to make it a feature in the room. And Susan, you briefly touched on this. Are you doing this right now in your house?
And yes, in the property that we're in at the moment, we've uncovered a couple of trees. Obviously, there's fireplaces behind the wall. We're going to bring them back. But in the sitting room, the main sitting room, we've got one there that we're going to probably put back to like a log burner, but the fireplace is there itself. So what I do at the moment is I've got these nice glass candle holders that light up the front of the fireplace. That looks quite nice when you come in. A couple of plants at either side as well, because it's not a usable fire at the moment, but it's just to basically cheer the fireplace up, if you like, until we put the log burner in. So I make use of that space at the moment, and it draws your eye to it when you come in at night time. You've got a nice wee candle in it, so it looks quite nice actually. So basically as well for the room, just some contemporary glass fronted fireplaces are designed to be accessory free, but placed in a low level shelf. You ever did that before? Put a wee shelf there, put some glassware on it, something that looks quite nice, and it just draws your eye to it as well. And coffee table hooks that can create just an elevated and artistic display to that fireplace. Now, honestly, I keep going back to my vintage and charity shops and things like that. They're cheap. You could pick everything up quite cheap. You're not needing to put nothing near expensive. If you're selling your house, just try and make it a feature. Somebody comes in, they'll go, wow. It just takes a bit of imagination, doesn't it? That's all it is. Same with your boring radiators. We've got some really big radiators in here at the moment that we'd like to change out. So I'll give you a tip. We had a cottage that we were working on recently. We tidied up. We got that oil-based paint and we tried it, by the way, and we've done some really nice work on the radiator, and it looked brand new. It looked like a new radiator. So it was really striking. It was just white that we put on it, and it just matched with the walls, and it made it look fresh, clean. You came in the room and you can see it and you went, oh, it looks like it's a new radiator. I don't know if you've ever tried it yourself, guys, the oil-based painting. It's really good, actually. It works a treat.
Possibly not.
Have you tried it before?
No, unfortunately not.
No, honestly, it's really, really good.
It's like, in the days when I was working on all my properties as a landlord and investor, I was doing all these different things. However, my priorities have actually changed a little bit. So therefore, having the time to do things like that, it's no. I tend just to buy new radiators. I tend just to get a new radiator. For me, new radiators are great from the point of view that but they're very energy efficient because they're not covered in paint. So I think that's how I look at it in terms of running costs, logically. But aesthetically pleasing, you're absolutely right. You know, to do that and actually, you know, the same colour as your wallpaper, and to actually integrate it into it, you actually don't see it when you walk into the room, and therefore it doesn't stand out. I think, you know, that's probably the biggest thing that you would get underfloor heating for if you didn't want radiators, underfloor heating. I kind of think underfloor heating's maybe not as cost effective to run as a radiator on a wall, unless anybody else can tell me different. But I do have it myself, and I've actually switched it off, and I've just put in my bathroom, I had underfloor heating, I switched it off, or just sealed it off, and then ended up putting 2 long vertical radiators in there. Just it wasn't good enough for what I needed it for. Maybe I've seen other houses where the underfloor heating's been absolutely perfect, and it's worked really, really well, especially when you get electric underfloor heating. I always think that's a lot better, the electric underfloor heating, than the actual panelled wall heaters. You know, I don't know your thought. What's your thoughts on that?
I think if you're going to use nice big rugs these days, sorry, Erin.
No, sorry, Susan.
You go, Erin.
I think that I've not seen so much underfloor heating recently, to be fair. I'm not too, maybe that's due to the climate we're in, but I'll tell you a good plan. If you ever are looking to maybe build a summer house or an outbuilding in your back garden, can't remember what property I was at, but there was a nice summer house in the back garden, and it didn't have radiators in it, but it did have electric underfloor heating, and it made the outhouse so much more spacious. You never had them on the walls sticking out, but you're getting the heat from underneath. It was lovely. It was just, people went in, that was probably the big selling point. Obviously the outhouse being lovely, but just a surprise at all the heating's under the floor, not having to faff about sticking things on your wall, still getting extra space by not having a radiator sticking out as well. So it was definitely a good one, that.
Was that £10,000 greenhouse that we had at Glenrothes?
I think that was,
And I was like, wow, that's the top end of the greenhouses, I'll tell you.
Of course,
because it was bespoke timber, with possibly, it might have been, I'm not really sure if it was double glazed units or no, but it was something else to be admired, definitely. But a big price point for that type of effectively, could you call it an outbuilding? Possibly. But it's no fixture, is it, really, because it's timber and glass?
No, of course not.
And you've got to be careful. Here's a top tip for people out there, a wee bit off the beaten track. But when you do have things like that, they can't add value to your actual property. So when the surveyor comes to do a home report and you've got an outbuilding and it's not brick built, it's maybe timber, but you've spent an absolute fortune buying it, like typical man cave, maybe 15,000 or 20,000 pounds. I've seen people do that. Then if it's not a fixture and it's just a timber feature, then it possibly might not add value to your home report. So you've got to be aware of that and just be careful. And you might even consider actually taking it with you to your next property if that is the case. However, sometimes it can actually work in your favour, because we did have a property in Cooper. I think it was Moat Hill in Cooper. I'm not really, if somebody could maybe pick me up on that street. And I remember it had a garage, which was actually a timber garage. But I tell you what, this was the garages to be beholded. And then it also next door, it had a games and a pub next door to it, which again was timber. But I tell you what, it was still something to behold. Definitely one of these things that you definitely want. And that was an opportunity where we were able to convince the surveyor to add the value or some of the value to the actual property itself, because it was a fixture to the actual ground. It was actually plumbed in, and there was proper electrics going into it and everything like that. So we were able to convince them on that occasion and actually add that value into there. So sometimes just be aware of that. Buy it for you if you're going to live in it long term, because you're going to get the best use out of it. Don't buy it because you think it's going to add value to the property, because it will often not add as much value as you actually are actually paying for it as well. Okay, so final thoughts on this. I mean, remember, warmth doesn't just come with the heat and the fireplace and the radiators. It also comes from how you present them and how they can add character and style to your home. But Susan, what's your final thoughts on this before we wrap up?
I just think if we just spend that wee bit of time, we're looking to get the best price for our house, okay? So spending a little bit of time looking around the room, making sure that you've got everything as it should be, clean, tidy. Think about you moving to your next property. Think about what you're looking for. And so if you went into a house and it was a bit dirty, dusty, would you want to take it on? Because people's imaginations sometimes can't stretch like ours can. We can see beyond what's in that room. You can imagine your own items in the house. So basically, just have it in the forefront of your mind. If it's clean, it's tidy, space, you've decluttered the place, then it's good to go. So that's just a wee tip. Just make sure that you've got all the things that you don't want hanging around out the way, light and smelling fresh, basically. That's what I would look for.
Perfect. What about yourself, Erin?
Yeah, for looking for cozy, kind of to keep that cozy vibe going on in the property. Again, candles, great idea. Also, sometimes a good idea if you've got some in the house or if you're nipping past the shops, maybe a nice throw on the sofa as well. Add a little bit of colour, but also kind of builds up the sofa as well. Or even if you've got a cat or a pet and you've got sofa scraps, claw marks on your sofa as well, even putting a throw over that takes it away, makes it look a lot more presentable, and it definitely does put a little bit of nice colour and make it a little bit more bright and bold in your living room. So it's a good idea to do that too.
That's where it does come back to this thing that you said about, if you are getting, well, I'd said about getting new furniture. If you are thinking about getting new furniture because your cat or your dog or something's damaged your sofa, and you're going to get a new sofa for your next house, then consider getting it now, because it will make a fundamental difference. But that is a great top tip, Erin, about just putting a throw over to make it look. And then the fact is, the throw will be washed and it will be absolutely stinking of, like lavender or oxygen or, vanilla, and then that'll go right throughout the house with that smell as well. So it makes a fundamental difference. So my top tip on this is probably you're better to get an estate agent to walk in the door first before you start doing all these things if you are considering selling, because then they'll be able to advise you what will add the most significant value for the least cost to your price point at the end, beforehand. Now, you get them in way before that. So if you're thinking about selling in 6 months, then you get people in now to talk about that, because it's the run up to that and the thought process it takes it. You don't want to get to last minute and say, well, what do you think I should do? And then they go, I possibly definitely think you should change your kitchen. And then what happens next with the changing the kitchen is you have to then get a contractor, and then a contractor now takes a couple of months to book you in, and then that causes a problem as well. So that makes a fundamental difference. So make sure you get an estate agent in beforehand. That's my best advice to you out there right now. Get someone who knows what will tick the boxes of the buyers and let you understand what you need to do to get the best price, as I said, in the most effective time. Also, they tell you about the time frame it will take to sell your house. Right now, it's taking a wee bit longer to sell a house. We know that. That's a normal thing to happen. So don't just expect you're going to put your house in the market because everybody's told you that it's going to sell in a heartbeat. Snap my fingers. That's not really a heartbeat, is it? But that's it. Thanks very much for coming on the show, guys. And next week for the Fife Property Show. Bye-bye for now.
Perfect. Bye, guys.